order to explore how we become 24th century Star Trek universe from our current 21st century regular Earth universe, we are going to have to start off at the beginning with our shared history. Welcome to part 1 of exploring the eugenics wars. How and when did the topic of eugenics truly get started on Earth? A lot of the information we are about to go through, including the timeline of eugenics, can be found on the National Human Genome Research Institute website, genome.gov. At least it can for now. Eugenics as we know it today started in 1883. Sadly, because of the studies of Charles Darwin. While it wasn't Charles Darwin himself who came up with the term eugenics, it was his cousin, Francis Galton. In 1883, in his published works, Inquiry into Human Faculty and Its Development, Galton coined the term eugenics. This came from the Greek word eugene, meaning good in birth or good in stock. We greatly want a brief word to express the science of improving stock, which is by no means confined to questions of judicious mating, but which, especially in the case of man, takes cognizance of all influences that tend, in however remote a degree, to give to the more suitable races or strains of blood a better chance of prevailing speedily over the less suitable. So it kind of started off bad, under a supposition that certain races were superior to others, defining intelligence, strength, and desirable traits in a very Eurocentric way. Galton believed that eugenics could control human evolution and development. He argued that social traits, such as intelligence, were a result of heredity. He claimed that only higher races could be successful. And that's just how eugenics began. In 1905, Alfred Plowitz would open the first eugenics society in, you guessed it, Germany. Plowitz coined the term racial hygiene, a term that would later go on to fuel Aryan superiority in Nazi Germany. But don't worry, America was on the cutting edge of this science too. And in 1906, the American Breeders Association established a committee on eugenics, at the request of Charles Davenport, who studied biology at Harvard and is considered one of the most important eugenicists, especially in the US of A. By 1907, states were passing sterilization laws. Indiana's law mandated sterilization of those in state institutions who were deemed idiots or imbeciles, as well as certain classes of criminals. Don't forget, women were institutionalized for various reasons, including promiscuity. And if you thought for a minute that this might disproportionately affect women of minorities, people of color, you'd be absolutely correct. And if you're thinking, well, thank goodness we haven't thought like that in a really long time, a lot of these laws were in effect until the 70s or even the 80s. They would really like us to think that these things are still completely in the past, and I'm here to tell you they are not. By 1910, Davenport had created the Eugenics Record Office, which he used to send out publications and questionnaires, and you'd think that this wasn't widely supported, but sadly it was. Even the top minds at the time felt eugenics was very important, such as Alexander Graham Bell, Nobel laureate Thomas Hunt Morgan, and sadly, even disability icon Helen Keller herself, who proved that privilege and accessibility change everything for the lives of disabled people. Through her close friendship with Alexander Graham Bell, also believed in eugenics until later. In 1912, the first International Eugenics Congress took place, presided over by none other than Leonard Darwin, Charles Darwin's son. Bell was there, and so was Reginald Punnett, the creator of the Punnett squares. Punnett said, "The one instance of eugenic importance that could be brought under immediate control is that of feeble-mindedness." Speaking generally, the available evidence suggests that this is a case of simple Mendelian inheritance. We can't let intellectually disabled people have children, or even just regular disabled. Anyone who's not like as cool as us, all of them's. Just a reminder of how vague this feeble-mindedness was. The Eugenics Record Office was trying to compile data on feeble-mindedness, criminality, and alcoholism. By 1914, eugenics organizations were expanding all around the globe. Sadly, events like World War I just caused people to want to improve society even more. And sadly, once again, this led to many believing that the Anglo-Saxon race was the superior race. And while this is not on the genome website, this is a really important historical event that has to do with eugenics. In 1918, as the war was winding down, the world was struck by the Spanish flu. And you might think this could make people more sympathetic to disabled, to the different classes that were struck by this flu in different ways. Then you weren't paying attention recently, were you? Those who were able to live through the Spanish flu often saw it as a purging of the undesirables. Well, they were already sick, they already had comorbidities and complications, so those losses, though maybe sad, are definitely worth it. There are wildly different estimates of how many people died in this pandemic. Globally, anywhere from 50 to even 100 million people. In the US alone, it was estimated 600,000 to a million people. And all it did was spur on and, in fact, invigorate the eugenics rhetoric. This leads us to the 1920s and the Fitter Family contests that Kansas began. It wasn't even really an original idea because in 1908 they'd started the Better Baby contests. These contests were sponsored by eugenics organizations. And the winners of the contests were predominantly, you guessed it, white. In the 1921 International Eugenics Congress, this one held in the United States and not London, the United States was having a really big problem with immigration issues. And they used that in order to be even more racist. The only good immigrants were those from Nordic countries specifically. All the other races coming from Europe, they were threats to the birth rates of American citizens and threats to the Nordic race. A lot of eugenicists were trying to use genetics as the basis in scientific study for their beliefs. Davenport invited William Bateson, who founded the name and field of genetics, to the Congress, but he declined, writing, "The real question is whether we ought not to keep genetics and eugenics separated." This leads us to the 1924 Johnson-Reed Act. All of these non-whites kept coming into the US, the Italians and the Polish. So they passed laws limiting how many non-Nordic immigrants could come, but of course allowing for the Northern Europeans, the good whites. The act placed a quota on the number of immigrants to the United States from Southern and Eastern Europe and completely excluded Asian immigrants. They move to our cities and take up all our jobs. They put a burden on the infrastructure. They're a threat to those of us who are superior in every way. In 1926, the American Eugenics Society was established, including people like Madison Grant, the author of the book The Passing of the Great Race, whom Hitler himself admired. The American Eugenics Society was just so caring and wanted to educate the American population on how much of an economic burden taking care of mentally ill children was. Because the economic burden has always been those of us who are at the very bottom and not those of us at the very top with all the money. Oh, wait, they were saying it was their economic burden to have to take care of anybody who's disabled. Got it. It's almost like today, where we have people talking about this, calling disabled people economic burdens and freeloaders. Meanwhile, there's billionaires. And maybe they would have a reason to propagandize against us? I don't know. This led to the Supreme Court ruling of Buck v. Bell, which I could do an entire video just on Buck v. Bell alone. How the woman was not actually intellectually disabled. But in the end, what they said was, it is better for all the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime, or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. And I'm gonna have to make a part 2 of even just the history. We haven't even gotten to World War II yet. It's not gonna get better. Maybe ever, but definitely not yet in history.